Okay, so the reading section is, as you probably know, the first section that you're going to do on the TOEFL. And it's not the most difficult section, but at the same time, it's really important that you have a really good strategy so that you maximize your score and you spend the least amount of energy possible on getting that high score. So what we're really going to focus on today is the way that you're going to attack the reading in a way that gives you really quick finish times and very little effort expended. So first, let's take a look at the numbers. The most important number is 60. That's the number of minutes that you're going to have to complete this test under most circumstances. That can change a little bit. You're going to have 3 texts on a standard TOEFL test, and that can also change a little bit. But you will generally have 36 questions. Sometimes you'll have more. And the reason that you have more questions is that sometimes they give you a 4th text, an extra text. And if they do that, you have more questions and you'll have an additional 20 minutes. The thing with that extra text is that you have just volunteered to be a humanitarian and torture future generations of TOEFL takers. And what that means is that 3 of the texts will make up your score, and a 4th text is going to be, they're using it to evaluate for use in general circulation on normal tests. So one of the texts will not be part of your score, but you have no idea which one it is and there's nothing you can do about it. So you have to do all 4 texts in the best possible way that you can. Okay, the next thing to think about is time, because time is many times on the reading section a little bit of a problem, but once you get used to time, then it'll be no big deal. Okay, the source of the problem is that you can go back and forth between questions, and you can also go back and forth between texts. So you can start the test, do question 1, do question 2, and then think to yourself, I want to go to the next text and see what that looks like. So you can go to text 2 and do questions 10 and 11 if you want. That's good on the one hand because you can do whatever you want, but on the other hand, you are the only person that can maintain this 20 minutes per text ratio. So at 20-minute intervals, you have to say, I must move to the next text no matter what. And you always have to keep that 20-minute per text speed. Okay, here's the important part, the strategy. So down here on the left, you can see a version of the TOEFL reading test. And as you can see, you have the questions and you have the text at the same time. So the real question is, do you read the text first or do you read the questions first? This is something that's going to be the basis of your strategy. So what do you think? Do you read the text first? No. Do you read the questions first? What do you think? Maybe. Yes. The reason is that if you read the text, you will not remember all the information you need to answer the questions. So it's kind of a waste of time. They also penalize people that try to answer these questions from memory. So if you just focus on the questions, I can almost guarantee that you will finish the test much faster and you will have a much higher rate of success. So always focus on the questions. All right, the next thing that you need to understand is that the way they form these questions is very mechanical and it always follows a very distinct pattern because they can't just create questions randomly. They have to be able to justify why they create these questions. So what you're going to do is reverse engineer what they were thinking when they made these questions. And your strategy is going to be very algorithmic. An algorithm, if you don't study computers or physics or mathematics, is just a step-by-step process, kind of like this machine. First, this green thing goes down, and then it moves the yellow thing, and then the movie projector starts. So you're going to have a very distinct order to the way that you do the reading section. Okay, so exactly what is your algorithm? It's these following steps. Number one, you need to find the keyword in the question. This is super important. You find the keyword in the question. And then you're going to find the keyword that's in the text that is either exactly the same as the question or it's restating that keyword in a different way. Then you need to answer the question using the text, not the choices given. I want you to ignore the 4 possible answers that they give you for these questions. What you're focusing on is the question that they gave you and then finding the answer in the text. Because if you look, you'll be kind of confused by the answers that they give you because they all sound pretty good. So the final thing that you do is you relate the answer that you got from the text and try to match it as best you can to the 4 options that they give you. All right, let's take a look at an example. This is another TOEFL reading exam. And as you can see, you have the text on the right and the questions on the left. And so to complete our algorithm, the first thing that we do is we read the question and find the keyword. So in paragraph 1, the author explains the concept of energy expenditure. I think that is the keyword. And what is this question asking me for? How does the author explain this concept? Okay, so now what I need to do is look for the keyword over in the text. And if you notice in at the end of that first sentence, you see expend energy, okay? And then right after that, the expenditure of energy is essentially a process of budgeting. Okay, so now I know that I've found these 2 keywords and I need to pull the answer from the text. I know that the answer almost always, maybe 80% of the time, is immediately after the keywords. So it's going to have something to do with a process of budgeting, whatever that is. Okay, now I'm going to go back and finally take a look at the possible answers. You don't want to look at the possible answers until this point. So first, does the professor identify types of organisms that become extinct? No. Does the professor or the writer compare scientific concept to a familiar human experience? Maybe budgeting is a familiar human experience, so I'm going to think about that as a possibility. Does the writer argue that most organisms conserve rather than expend energy? Maybe. And finally, do they describe the process of growth, reproduction, and metabolism? Well, let's see. I'm going to say it's this item, and here's why. Budgeting is when you control your own money in a way that is very prudent. So really, why are options 3 and 4 not correct? First of all, 3 is not correct because they do say that organisms conserve rather than expend energy later, but that's not how the professor explains the concept of energy expenditure. The writer just says that organisms do that. And additionally, so here, a plant or animal cannot squander all its energy on growing a big body. So here it says that an animal can't waste energy, but they don't say that they have to save energy. And if you notice, they do speak about that concept here, but it's farther down and it's already in a different section, so we can't really use that because it should come from paragraph 1. And the describing the process of growth, reproduction, and metabolism, you see those words in here in the very beginning, but does the writer explain or describe the process of growth, reproduction, and metabolism? No. And also, more importantly, that answer appears before the keyword, so it's not a valid piece of information. So what you can see is they take these pieces of information like growth, reproduction, daily metabolism, allocate energy to growth. They take words from the text directly here in this 4th answer, growth, reproduction, and metabolism, growth, reproduction, and metabolism, and they put them into the incorrect answers in order to confuse you. So this is why it's super important to follow this algorithm so you don't get confused by their tricks, and also so that you don't waste time reading more than you need to read. Okay, here's the second really important concept in the TOEFL. It's very easy, but it's very, very important. The questions follow the order of the text. There's only one exception to that rule, and that's the final question. But you'll have you'll have a video on that entire item. Basically, question 1 is going to come from paragraph 1. Question 2 is going to come from paragraph 2 or from, later in paragraph 1. Question 3 is going to come somewhere farther down, maybe paragraph 4, maybe the end of paragraph 2, wherever, but they always follow the same sequence as the text. And that is going to help you to focus on smaller pieces of the text as you go. Okay, so just to review, you need to be strategic on the reading. Use logic. Don't read the text and then try to remember the answers. Make sure that you trust your algorithm, because a lot of people, when they get nervous, they stop using the algorithm, they read the text, and they try to just answer the questions. And that's when they have really big problems. If you're nervous, the algorithm will help you even more because you're going to be systematic and you're going to find more correct answers. And finally, don't look at the answers that they give you until you have created your own answer from the text. That's going to avoid confusion and allow you to spend less time discarding incorrect answers. Okay, go do some practice.